All right, let's get our Facebook groups in here before it's officially time to start the show. Got their spinning wheels going there. Still spinning 1 and a 2. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. It is Thursday morning, November 2nd, 2023, and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always, for these morning shows, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how you doing? Are you starting to feel like we're starting to get back into the groove of things here? I know I was out a little bit there. October was.
Yeah, we're halfway through the season.
I know we're.
It's week 9. What happened? It goes fast. That's what especially as you get older. You're like, I can wait. I'll be patient because you blink twice and it'll be next season already.
Yeah, we're getting through, and there's still a lot of football to be played for the NFL. College is 2/3 over. In college, we got 4 games left. So, things are flying by, and it'll be Christmas here before you know it. So things are changing, and things are changing for the Broncos as well. So we're obviously going to sit here today, answer your questions, say hello to the chat, and we want to go through and grade the positional groups. Scott and I are obviously big time philosophical, team building kind of people. He and I are both, I'm just going to assume for you here, Scott, but I saw somebody mention it in the chat on Tuesday, and they absolutely nailed me. I think it was Jeremy saying, like, you'd buy Madden and never play the game. You'd just team build and simulate. And I did that. I did that like 40 years in the future. It's more fun in NCAA when you were recruiting and stuff.
I'll say I didn't because it was more fun to do in recruiting on NCAA.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. But I would, maybe only play the playoffs or like the big matchups just to guarantee victories. But, Broncos versus Browns back in like 2006, I might be simming that one just to get ahead and, keep team building. But yeah, a lot of fun. And who was your team in NCAA? Did you ever, go with a random team?
Sometimes what I would do is remove, because remember I went to Auburn. I would change Alabama to like Alabama State or promote them and then boot Alabama out. And I take like the Alabama State Yellow Jackets and try and turn them into a national power. I'd play Idaho. I'd play like just obscure teams and try and see if I could get them. One time I won like 90 straight games and never got invited to the BCS championship. So,
God,
depending on where I was, I'm like, I'm pretty good. So, but yeah, I would sim and recruit, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'd be really excited. I got this guy, and then I play one game with him. I'm like, okay, I'm bored. Time to recruit some more.
You're always bringing in your replacement. That's true for the NFL too, and we'll get into that today. Maybe some guys worth talking about future replacement as we go through the grades. But let's say hello to some people in the chat. Jeremy Sean is in the house saying, "Morning, boys." I'd say the only A grade is the running backs. Scott, I'm going to be honest, I do not have like the grades written down in front of me, so it'll be kind of as we go. And we did this before, and you're like, "Are you sure you give that grade?" I'm like, okay, maybe I'll walk that one back a little bit because you make some good points, but. I would say, oh man, out of all the players the Broncos have right now, I can't think I'm going to give anybody an actual A.
I wouldn't get, I'm not giving out any A's.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has earned an A in my book so far this season. Just from
typically, if you wanted to start going individuals, you typically just say, oh yeah, Pat Surtain, he's an A. Like, he's an A player, but he hasn't necessarily been playing at an A level all season.
No.
So, and then there's against expectations, is the other part of that, is when you've got an undrafted rookie free agent playing like Jaleel McLaughlin, that's an A, but he's not an A running back yet. He's an A for where you got him. But if that was a first round pick, you'd be a little disappointed. So you have to try and take expectations away from it when you're giving grades. We're not grading on a handicap here. We're grading on, hey, you're NFL football players now, not prospects, et cetera, or where were you graded or what are you getting paid? Those are different conversations. If we want to talk about value, Jaleel McLaughlin's an A+. Jonathan Cooper's an A. But if I'm talking about I'm going to go and play in the Super Bowl tomorrow and I need my A guys out there, who do I have that is going to line up and give me a 98 on that Madden? There's not a whole lot of them that we can point to that for the first 8 games, 8 weeks of the season, because there was some bad in there. Now there's guys trending in the right direction, but there was a lot of bad to start this year.
Yeah, they flunked some pop quizzes, weeks early on in the semester, and they've done well since then. But those first quizzes still matter in the standings. Hence why the Broncos defense is playing better, but still ranked 32nd out of 32 in many, many, many advanced metrics.
I've got a freshman in the house right now, and I'm like, do not screw around now. Get out ahead, then maybe coast in. But get out ahead now. Do not screw up your senior applications because you were dicking around as a freshman.
Yep.
Get it done.
Yep.
Okay.
It matters now. It matters now. Jesse Fraley talking about mattering. $5 super chat coming in. Thank you guys so much, Jesse. And if you are unlike Jesse, able to contribute financially to the show, that's okay. Make sure you click a thumbs up on the way in and share, like, subscribe. We always appreciate that as well. But the number one way to support us, of course, is the super chats like Jesse here with the $5 and the very cute dog in the Broncos jersey saying, good morning. Still trying to figure out if we turned a corner with KC or if it was a one shot. Does Kansas City change your win-loss calculation for the year? It does because it's one more win. But I think Scott and I were both about 9 to 10 wins before the season started when we went through it. I don't think we got to 11, Scott. I think it was 9 to 10 when we went through it. But after the season was terrible, I was like, okay, maybe this is a 5 to 6 win team now. After that KC win, I'm thinking probably 6 to 8 is where Denver will fall in the end. That would have them falling short of the playoffs. And I'm thinking at some point, maybe Scott and I will, go through the rest of the schedule and talk about that. It is the bye week after all. But right now, I think, that does put them a win and a half above what I expected, defeating KC, just because Kansas City's been an automatic loss for how many years?
Yeah. And for me, Jesse, when I'm looking at this, and appreciate the super chat, if I'm looking, I've been talking line graphs, your progress report for like a couple of weeks now. Where have you been? Because I've said that the Broncos hit bottom on that chart Christmas Day last year, the Christmas Day massacre against the Rams, and it's been staying there. So for me, if I want to see where I turn the corner, was it a false hope or was it actually a corner turn? It started last week against the Packers. That's, to me, was the turning point for this Denver Broncos team and the franchise right now, was that game. Well, it was just the Green Bay Packers not very good. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You had lost 10 straight games. Your home record had gone in the dumpster. You lost a lead against a team that you shouldn't have. It would have been real easy to just tuck tail. And these guys fought and they came back and won. Okay, that's where this question comes in, Jesse, to me, is like, was this a one shot or have they turned the corner? Let's wait and see what they do against Kansas City. Can they back it? Yes, they did. The corner has been turned. This team has turned the corner, and it has absolutely changed my outlook for the rest of the team compared to the previous game against the Green Bay Packers. I was literally talking, yes, this team has a chance to get the number 1 or number 2 pick. 3 wins. Now I'm looking and I look at the schedule. I'm like, okay, you've played this game. You won this game. You beat the Chiefs. Now, can you be consistent enough to, if you can beat the Chiefs, you can beat anybody. But that doesn't mean you're going to go out and win 9 more games. Can you be consistent enough to win half of them? Yeah, I think so. I'm back up to around 8 right now, Nick. I think this team can win. I was at 3. We had talked about you weren't going to be favored, but maybe one time the whole rest of the season. That's going to change. That's going to change now. And I'm looking at, probably 8 for this team. And you start looking for next year, man, we really closed strong. I'm ready to go. I'm excited again.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch them down the stretch, and hopefully they're playing meaningful games at the end. The real unfortunate aspect is that who the Broncos have been, you shouldn't apologize for who you beat or anything, but because 2 of your 3 wins are NFC opponents, you are going to lose almost every tiebreaker come the end of the season. If you are sitting there with multiple teams with 9 wins or multiple teams with 10 wins, first it's that conference. A lot of times if it's 3 teams, I believe it's the conference record, and that would be worse for the Broncos because their wins have come against NFC so far. Probably have to go 7-2 down the stretch anyway to be even in that conversation. So we'll see. Game by game, playoffs or not, they look like they're absolutely trending in the right direction. And one thing I would disagree with you a little bit on your point there, Scott, I think things turned around Thursday night in Kansas City. Although the offense in that game was absolutely dreadful, that was statistically the worst game we've seen from Russell Wilson in Denver. It would have been so easy for the defense just to lay down and die in that one. Short week, the Taylor Swifts in the stands. They've been horrible so far. And coming off that Jets loss to Zach Wilson at home again. I mean, how's Zach Wilson beating us? Now we got to go short week Thursday to Kansas City. Defense showed up.
The first Kansas City game where they played them, where they fought. When they fought, yeah.
Absolutely confidence. Okay, if our defense plays like this, guys, we can win football games. And Did that against Packers. Done it against Kansas City at home now. Not a great defense still. I know they're playing better, but not a historically bad defense. And if you have a formula to win football games now, especially with the offensive scheming that I've seen in the red zone specifically, if you're getting points down there when teams aren't really scoring in the red zone right now, you can do some stuff. Speaking of doing stuff, helping our show, Michael Ronquillo. Good morning, Nick and Scott and Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Sorry, Scott. It sounded like you were about to say something. I just want to
No, that's okay. I was just gonna follow up with what you said. It's like that all of that good that you did in a loss. There's no moral victories, but yeah, but you held a good team down. Was that a fluke or not? All that could have gone away if you didn't come back against the Packers.
Oh yeah,
Yep. But like you said, all that could have gone away if for you, the checkpoint started turning up against the Chiefs in a loss.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it really started elevating when you came back against the Packers. For me, when I look back and we're talking about playoffs again, eventually, this year, you go 8 games left, 9 games left?
9.
Go 6-3, and you're right there. It's possible. Yeah. I'm going to look back to that Packers game for me.
Yeah. And it's also quite frankly possible, not to be a Debbie Downer on this, but you beat a really bad Bears team. You beat looks like a very bad Packers team. And you beat a Chiefs game in a kind of a weird situation. Let's just be honest. I'm not going to excuse it because there's no way we should excuse it, but 5 turnovers, a muffed punt that puts you right in the scoring position, the efficiency of the pass offense, if we'll call it that. It was a game where things bounced right for the Broncos game. And a lot of the previews for the Chiefs, like, can the Broncos beat the Chiefs? Yes, they need a muff punt. They need to execute better in the red zone. They need to win the turnover battle by a lot. Check, check, check. We're like right there in that situation. So we're going to find out against a lot of quality teams going forward if this Kansas City game was, an outlier in terms of the way it played out for Denver, perfect storm, if you will, or if this is a team that's learning some things. I will say from what I've watched the Kansas City game now 3 times, Scott. I don't see that as a sustainable formula week to week, just because you're going to need more from your drop back pass game. You just cannot win that game. You're not going to be getting the ball in that amazing field position over and over and over again, winning the turnover battle by 4+. I mean, that doesn't happen in the NFL game to game.
Unless you're a bad team and you've been losing for 4, 5, 6 years in a row, and then you see it every week on the wrong side.
Oh, well.
So again,
yeah,
part of becoming a better team is watching the other team screw around and make mistakes and do that. Now, like I've said, it took 5 turnovers, but it's amazing to me that in 16 games, you didn't have one of these games before. That's statistically almost impossible. That this hasn't happened before. It hasn't happened more often. It happens often to bad teams. The Broncos are becoming a much better team.
Yeah.
Even we saw it go along. It's like, unfortunately, what we would see is, okay, the offense looked better. The defense was sucking hind. I don't know if I can say that, but in a cow, it's a hind tit. It's on the back of the thing. That's what it's doing. Okay, the defense started getting out. Now the offense can't get out of its own way.
And here comes special teams.
Defense are playing better. Here comes a return a long return. The special teams gave it up. So
bad punt.
We've seen aspects of competence. At the beginning of over the offseason, Scott, what do you expect? We had that question. You asked me that question. They've asked me a question. I expect to see competency. I expect to see a football team that has a plan that looks like they know what they're doing. I don't expect to see perfection, and I don't know what the win-loss is going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
But we've seen pieces of it all season with pieces of bad. This has been a bad football team for a long time, Nick.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's coming together. You don't need to have 5 turnovers. You might have needed it to get that freaking monkey off your back with the Chiefs, but you're not going to get 5 turnovers every time, and you're not going to pass for 114 every week. That's a fluke. You didn't need to. That was part of it, Nick. I believe that as well. You didn't need to.
No, they beat them by a good margin. They won by more, blocked field goal. Russell Wilson getting strip sacked and giving up points right before half too. I mean, that's stuff that, in the margins, the Broncos could have won by more because there were some plays that, it didn't go every single way the Broncos way, but a lot of the big stuff did. Personally, I'm still not Nick, do you believe in this team now after the Chiefs game? Not quite yet, just because
belief. What are we talking about belief? Because I see a question from Ashish. She says, if they can beat the Bills, can we really believe this team can be a playoff contender? What do you think? Yes, if you beat the Bills, the Bills. I'm convinced. Yep. Then there's 6-3 on the back end of 9 games. If you beat the Bills in Buffalo, 6-3 is absolutely on the table.
It'd be 5-3 beyond that point, right? Because you already have the win in your
absolutely.
pocket.
Then even at that point, 6-2 is on the table. If you go into Buffalo, if you beat the Chiefs, you've done it. So it doesn't sound as crazy anymore, does it? And you go on the road and beat the Bills. Yes, we can start talking playoffs. I'm not talking playoffs until then.
And I don't know if this makes me milk toast or not. Nick, are you all the way in on this team as a could be a good to great team after they beat Kansas City? No, they've only really beaten one good team. Am I going to be all the way off? This is the worst team again if they beat the Bills. No, they've played some teams tough. So, I mean, very milk toast towing both lines. I need to see it over multiple good teams here. I don't really think the Packers were good. It felt like I was watching a Big Ten West game there, and just not a lot of good execution. So we'll see how they play out over these next few weeks, but 100% trending in the right direction. And probably the most excited I've been to tune in on Sunday football for a bit. To be completely honest. I mean, I obviously still love watching the Broncos, but sometimes it feels like it's like, oh man, this is going to be work today because they're just, they're just going to piss me off. Let's just be real. They're going to make me so mad watching them. And I'm excited. I'm curious to see what happens, and definitely trending the right way. Am I a believer in this team as a playoff good team? Not yet, but start stacking quality games regardless of the outcome. We can start to believe in here for me. And I need to see it, 10 times before I'm a believer. So Drake Wally, $10 coming in, talking about 10 times, says, man, after that Kansas City win, I feel comfy saying Wilson looks like he's in rhythm again. I don't know about his 114 yards. He's looking more relaxed and has 16 touchdown passes to 4 interceptions. Looks good, in my opinion. It's tough. The way, I don't want to rain on the parade here. Wilson has been good, and especially in the red zone. I think that was the red zone differential between the Broncos and the Chiefs in that game, outside of turnovers, is probably like one of the key stats. And it's been one of the key stats all season in the NFL. Red zone scoring is way down. But the thing that, watching the game, talking to people a little bit more in the know than I am, it feels like Sean Payton has training wheels a tad on the offense for Russell Wilson, the pass offense specifically. It doesn't really feel like he full on trusts him, and he does open things up a tad in the red zone because you have to score points. Don't turn the damn ball over, but be a little bit more aggressive there. I still think, though, it's just does not seem like he's firing all cylinders. The stats look good. The efficiency from the passing touchdowns, the interceptions look good. But, Scott, how many passes beyond the line of scrimmage do you think Russell Wilson had this last week?
All I know is the 4-1 I love.
Yes.
But to your point, and then you can answer, is this is still the lowest yards per attempt and lowest yards per completion of his career, which is fine. I mean, honestly, if you're going to tell me he's going to finish 32-8 right now, and that's with one less game, I'm just doubling the 8 to get to 16 games. 32 with 8, I'll take it. So will you, in a freaking heartbeat. And he's playing in Denver next year. You'll absolutely take it. That doesn't mean he's necessarily Russell Wilson of old, but again, that ship has sailed as far as I'm concerned. If he can play efficient and put up these kind of numbers, he's winning you games. You're not just he's winning games. The passing game is winning games for you, whether it's a quick strike from the 5 because you muffed a turnover. That was a perfect pass. I don't care. He's winning games. The touchdowns are coming. The turnovers are low. I'll take that. Absolutely, I'll take that. Did I want more when I gave up all that money in the draft picks? Yeah, too late. It's too late.
Yeah.
Now, what are you getting? And Drake, appreciate you coming in with the super, my friend. Great to see you. Thanks for coming in this morning. Hope you were having a good morning leading into early afternoon.
And it's going to be if the Broncos keep playing well around Russell Wilson, but it is this style of football, it's going to be a really interesting conversation and probably a little bit toxic conversation this offseason surrounding what do you do with Russell Wilson and the contract, because, I mean, there's some good throws in this last week, but again, it really looks and feels like they have the training wheels on, or the bumpers on, while bowling, if you will. And I'm curious if Sean Payton thinks they can do a little bit more. One thing also with Russell Wilson, this is maybe I'll have to do a statistical analysis piece at some point on this, but the Broncos so far this season have got to be one of the most obvious tendency teams in football based on where the quarterback lines up. There is an advanced stat called pass rate over expected, where it shows, like, in these situations, in this parameter of the score and where you're at on the field, are you more likely to pass or not? And I went through every single team, and no team has as drastic of a pass rate over expected in under center versus shotgun than the Broncos. If they're under center, they're running the football. If you're in shotgun, you're passing the ball. And guess what? If the team is that obvious doing that, you know who also knows what to look for in that? the defense, of course. So I'm curious if that's a Russell Wilson height thing. Can they not run it out of shotgun because of Javonte Williams rush style? It's an odd situation worth following going forward. So I don't know. There's a lot of factors with Russell Wilson.
You know what'll help that, Nick?
What?
The bye week.
Yeah.
The bye week, when you get a chance to self-scout, when you really get a chance to turn back and look and someone says, hey, did you realize that every time we're under center we're running the ball? No, I didn't realize that. There are thousands upon thousands of people watching this and checking it out. So it is possible for me not to know everything as a head coach. I will now keep a look on that and make an adjustment. Thank you. I don't expect Sean Payton to react like that, but that's how he would fix things. The bye week is a good chance to self-scout some of the things you've been doing and fix that. That's pretty easy to fix, you would think.
You would hope. Also, interestingly, just another statistical stuff, just because I'm a math nerd and I want to say hello to the we got super chats coming in, but the Broncos have been really good passing out of 11 personnel this year. So that's 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 running back. But it feels like they've been leaning more on heavy, and they've been, I think, the 24th ranked team in EPA throwing the ball out of either 21 or 12. So that's 1 fullback or 2 tight end defenses out there. And it's pretty odd to see that drastic, because in the recent NFL trends, it's actually been teams have run better out of 11 because there's less guys in the box, and pass better out of 12 because there's more guys in the box. So that's a simple way to look at it. But the Broncos have been the opposite of that trend. So I'm curious to see if they can improve in any aspect. I've really wanted more heavy personnel, but the overall EPA per play and the explosives specifically have been significantly better out of 11 personnel. So interesting to follow going forward for this Broncos team. It's probably because all the explosive pass chunk plays that would lead to huge EPA boosts have been out of 11 personnel because they've been to Marvin Mims. That maybe has a heavy impact on that. But again, just some weird trends to worth following when you're looking at this team. And if you're curious about some of the data, hit me up. I have some websites and dashboards with a bunch of fun interfaces. You can look at the data for the NFL teams.
Troy coming in, he says, hey guys, how do you rate the OL when it's difficult to know whether to attribute the sacks to the line or holding the ball too long? My eyes say the offensive line is improving. Have a great show. This is a good scheme question. How do I rate the OL as a whole? I kind of look at the offense on the whole, for that matter. The offense is going to go as the offensive line does. When I'm evaluating players, I'll watch that player 7, 8, 9, 10 snaps in a row, get a chance to see them head up in the running game. How did they handle their assignment? When the blocking, the different type of pass blocking they have to do, whether it's just a bull rush or there's a stunt coming in, I want to see how they handle that. The unit, though, again, that's for me. I've always been more about the individuals because I've had to rank players. That's what I've done for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. With the offensive line, and how do I put it on the quarterback? I'll give a quarterback 2 reads. 5-step drop, set, that's 1, because you're basically scanning on the way back. And then I'll give you 2, and if the ball's not out, if I got 2 reads in, the offensive line done its job. Anything more than that is gravy as far as I'm concerned. That ball needs to come out 1, 2, or the quarterback needs to do something else. If he's gotten more than that, that's gravy from the offensive line. So if I'm saying, was this a coverage sack or was this on the quarterback, I'll give you 2 reads. Set, 1, throw. And if you're sacked after that, that's on you, the quarterback. That's how I look at it, Nick.
It always depends on what the concept is. Sometimes the defense just has you beat. Defensive coordinator Scott, cover yours on this one. But listening to some people smarter than me in the coaching and scheme world have talked about how a lot of defensive coordinators know the rules for pass protections based on your personnel that you line up with, and they will call specific type of simulated pressures in order to
fake blitzes too.
Fake blitzes. Yep, you knew it was coming, Scott. You were ready. In order to break those rules to get free rushers. And that not to be that guy, but I think probably 2 of Nick Benito's sacks, free rusher. Good call to get the free rusher on there. But and you have to be able to finish it still. But that's something where it's like sometimes you just got to tip your cap to the defense because they beat you on the call pre-snap.
Yeah.
One thing we do have here, and this is subjective, of course, but PFF does allocate or assess blame for sacks. Actually, is it sacks? It's pressure. They assess blame for pressures out there. So a much bigger number, actually probably a better sample size if you're using pressures rather than sacks. But the Broncos have the highest pressure responsibility rate on the quarterback of any quarterback in the NFL, with Russell Wilson accounting for 26.3% of the pressures. The next highest is Jalen Hurts at 22.9, and then Mahomes at 21.7, and then Josh Allen at 20.3.
What do all four of those guys have in common?
They like to hold onto the ball, and they're looking to hunt and create big plays.
And they're mobile. They are mobile, so they trust their legs in order to get themselves out of that. I'm going to hold on to this just a little bit longer because I know I can scramble out of here if I need to. All four of those guys are mobile, seriously mobile.
And it's not, I'm not saying it's a detriment to have that guy, but it does mean that you have to at least talk about that in context to the offensive line.
And it also means you need to pay attention to what pressures mean and whatnot, and who these are on. And said, well, this guy's had more time to throw. Just because he's holding on to it longer doesn't necessarily mean he had more time to throw. The other guy just got rid of it quicker because he didn't trust himself to get out of it. Mobile quarterbacks are going to be pressured more. They're going to be sacked more because they want to make more plays with their legs. The guy who cannot run out of there will get rid of the ball quicker and take a 2nd and 10. Now, you might not end up with a 2nd and 15 because he didn't take the sack, but you're also not going to get an explosive play out of that because the guy could make some plays with his legs or extend a play to make a play downfield. So it's the good with the bad. And when the defense out schemes you, I don't put that on the OL or the quarterback. So again, when I'm rating offensive linemen, I'm looking at stuff. It's like, okay, well, they rushed 7 and I only had 5 in. And that's not on the offensive line. That's just, that would be more on the quarterback, honestly, if there was a sack in there, because he's got to read the hot route. And did he read the hot route and get that out? But that's not on the OL when you're outnumbered like that. So again, Troy, great question. There's so much that goes into it. For me, I look at the individuals to see how they're carrying out their assignment. And then for the whole of the unit, some of it to me is just your I call it seat of the pants analytics. Could you see them moving the ball? Could they run the ball when they needed to? Could they get protection when they needed to? That's for the unit. Great question, Troy.
We're all about the unit, guys. Welcome in, David Youngkin coming in saying, good morning, Broncos country. Can't give a grade because I have not watched but 1 or 2 games, but you're in here hanging out with us. God bless you. Mama X, good morning, Broncos country. Then follows up with the exclamation points. Always good to see. Donald Willison's in the house too, saying good morning. John Yang saying, I personally think our real test would be this next Bills game. They're all real tests. It's the NFL, and you got to stack them each. Even though that Broncos win versus Kansas City feels good and more momentum, in the end, it is one win in the column. So got to keep stacking those, and we'll hopefully can continue to see that going forward.
To his point, though, it becomes do you believe or not? I'm not, and we're all kind of saying the same thing. Yeah. One game, the Packers weren't great. We beat them. That doesn't make us a playoff caliber team.
Yeah.
Beating the Chiefs on its own doesn't necessarily make you a playoff caliber team because anything can happen from week to week. Beat the Packers, beat the Chiefs, beat the Bills. I'm in.
On the road.
I'm in. On the road. I'm in. Now you've shown the consistency of being an upper tier team. Now I'm in.
And the Bills, we're not a trap game. The Broncos will not be a trap game, in my opinion, because you follow the Jets the next week after that. But they play Sunday night versus the Bengals, and Bills-Bengals has been arguably one of the best matchups that we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, they are freaking brawls. So I'm curious to see how beat up they are. I mean, Josh Allen's dealing with a shoulder injury right now. I think the Broncos can be feisty in that one. I don't think Vegas is going to pick them. Obviously, Vegas will probably have the Bills by, I would assume, 6.5, Scott. That's just my gut telling me 6.5 to 7.5. But it'll be a good game. Broncos will be in it. Good to see Orange Bucky with the laughing. Donald Wilson also in the laughing here. I don't know what we're laughing about, but God bless you guys. Jason Phillips is a Broncos fan in the heart of Bills Mafia. They are 100% overlooking us. Yeah, it should be I'm hoping it's a great game, guys. Jamal Killing's in here saying, morning, Broncos country. Albert Knopper's in the house. Good morning, all. Miguel Santos Steven. Always great. Hope you're doing well. I don't know what this is about. I wonder if Nick and Scott will go out like Thomas and Luke on yesterday's show. Did Thomas and Luke get into it? I don't know what's going on. Hopefully they're all good.
A little bit. Thomas or Luke was playing Debbie Downer for you.
Oh,
he was like, I'm not a believer. I don't like Russell Wilson. I don't like any of these guys. We all suck. I did want to say, though, because I thought Thomas made an excellent point last night, and I want to give him credit for this, and then I want to repeat it. If we didn't have the negative baggage around Russell Wilson right now, the narrative would be much different. If this was last year and he came out in the first 8 games and threw up a 16-4 touchdown to interception ratio, you'd be saying, we got what we wanted. Russell Wilson is doing it. If he had that positive feeling around him instead of the negative. Right now, he's trying to dig himself out of the hole. And it's, but that's the feeling around Russell Wilson right now. This was last year, and he comes out of these games with 16 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. You're saying, we got what we paid for. Now it's up to these guys to step it up. So I thought that was a great point, and I agree with it.
It's impossible to say for me because obviously previous games matter and they do impact your perception. I feel like I would probably be still excited about the trade, but trending in a concerned direction given what the statistical output and the type of throws he's been making have looked like the first 4 games versus the last 4. It's like, oh, we're trending in a scary direction.
I just think and I'm talking about perception. The perception around Russell Wilson is skewed by last year in a big way.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Keith, skewing our perception, whatever that means. Good to see you. Greg, always good to see you. Good morning, Broncos country. Kayleon Green's also in the house. Yo to you, Kayleon. Rodney's in the house. Good morning, Broncos country. Love you guys. Go Broncos. We love you. We got Miguel. I think if the Bills beat the Bengals this weekend, I think it's a good thing for the Broncos. I feel like the Bills lose, they will come with a vengeance against Denver. It's possible. Bengals have been a little bit feisty here recently. Joe Burrow has been healthier. I think he had a calf injury to start the season. He's been playing better, but that's an interesting Bengals team for sure, and should be a game that I am very, very excited to watch this week. Ashish comes in and says, if the Broncos can beat the Bills in Buffalo, then we can really believe this team is a playoff contender. What do you think? You probably like what Scott and I were saying earlier. If they beat the Bills, there's going to be some belief in the coffee in these morning shows. Sean Burns, good morning to you, Sean.
Stir in a little belief.
Yeah, absolutely. Typically, I like my coffee black. No, I actually like a little creamer. Scott drinks his black, though, but we'll add a little belief in there, too. Ernie Mays only coming in here saying, hello, Nick and Scott. Go Broncos country only. I believe in my Broncos. God bless you, Ernie. We always appreciate you coming in and saying hello. One of our favorites. I mean, Ernie is a one-of-a-kind guy. Fallen Sloth, good morning, Broncos country. It says, Donald also said he's heading out without us. Oh, whatever. Keith Brugman also saying, so far in 2023, we've got check down Russ. God, we need to get into the grades here, Scott, and we're going to have plenty of time to analyze Russell Wilson. Some more data for you. The Broncos have been one of the bottom 5 teams in the NFL bottom 10 teams in the NFL in targeting wide receivers for their target distribution and targeting tight ends and their target distribution, and they are tied for first in the running back stuff. So that would running back target distribution. So that would say to me, we do have check down Russ. Also watching the film, I feel like a lot of the passing concepts have been half field read, high low, where you only have 2, maybe 3 routes that you're truly reading based on 1 or 2 defenders. And because of that, they're getting down to the check down a little bit more. I don't mind.
Short passing game to the running backs is a huge part of a Sean Payton offense. That's an extension of the running game. So just you kind of throw that out there. What I would like to see, though, especially with this team, is reverse the targets on the tight ends to the wide receivers. I want to see the wide receivers getting the ball more than the tight ends. It's just your playmakers are there. Say what you want to about Troutman, Manhurts, even Dulcich. If I've got the choice of getting the ball to Sutton and Judy and Mims, I know where I'm going with that. And that, again, I think the bye week is coming at a good time to self-scout some of those things, get healthy and have some momentum and keep working on stuff. And again, you have a little bit more belief in the locker room. It's like, oh, what do we do now, coach? Teach us. We want to learn. Those are good things. But I'm not surprised a bit.
Yeah.
That's a Sean Payton thing. That's not, and it could be exacerbated by how Russell Wilson plays, but that is absolutely a Sean Payton thing that your running backs get that many targets.
Yeah, it definitely is. I don't have historical data on that. I know think
Alvin Kamara caught 80 catches 4 years in a row under Sean Payton. That's all I need to know. 80 catches.
I still would like to see how the distribution is compared to the peers, just to get a baseline for that. But definitely it's a part of the offense, and I don't think it's a big issue. But when you have, only 6 passes past the line of scrimmage, I mean, it's not like they are really testing windows. I mean,
right.
Did Russell Wilson have any high leverage, incredibly tough throws in this last game? I mean, the red zone stuff, there was the one play where he climbed and escaped and then threw a beautiful red zone touchdown pass to the left corner of the end zone, I believe. He had a good throw to Cortland Sutton as well, but it's not like he's pushing the ball very hard and making, as PFF would categorize it, big time throws. And you know what? If they're playing good defense and running the ball well and you're protecting the goddamn football, then I am okay with that to an extent. But there is a cap to it.
You didn't need to because your defense is playing better. Again, 16-4, those are good numbers. Those are really good numbers. I don't care how you come about them, but you've got to win the other parts of the game. Your special teams have to play well. Your defense has to play well, and you've got to hold on to the ball.
Yep. And I'm with you. Trying to get more 11 personnel out of there. It's the data-wise is hard because the Broncos are much worse at running out of 11 personnel than they are 12 and 21. I think they're like 4th and 6th running EPA per play in 12 and 21 personnel. They're like 26th in EPA per rush in 11 personnel, but they're much more explosive. They're much better passing team. So how can they pass better or run better out of 11 personnel? Is that really that much of a detriment? Are you not getting the blocking on the perimeter or the tight ends that much of a difference maker in the run game? It's going to be interesting. Right. You need to be a little bit more balanced.
You've got 3 minutes to give me your offensive grade since we spent the last 30 breaking down the offense.
Okay. Quarterback grade so far this season, I'm going to give it a C+. I think that it's been the sacks are something we haven't talked about at all with Russell Wilson, and that's something that despite him being sacked so much, the sack yardage hasn't been incredible. So at least he's like climbing the pocket some, and it's like a 1-yard sack versus a 15-yard sack. So that's a soft positive. But I think C+ right now, you're protecting the football, and for the most part, other than some of the strip sack stuff, and it's much better than last season. I don't think it's great. Yeah, I'll give it a B-. I'll move it up a little bit here. So B- for the quarterback grade overall this season. The red zone stuff's been great. There's still areas to improve. It does seem like they're kind of limiting him schematically so he doesn't make mistakes, but winning football games, protecting the football, I will take it for now given where we were.
I'm a B on that. His quarterback rating looks really, really good at number 4, but he's also the lowest on yards per completion and yards per attempt and yards in the top 10 of those top 10. You talk QBR, if you like that a little bit, he still comes in right towards the middle of the other one, which includes running the ball, because some of those fumbles have been when he's not being sacked, but running the ball, and that counts against him. Yep. He's been a B for me. Like I said, if you were to offer me 32-8 at the end of the season, at the beginning of the season, Scott, you'll take this or you can take your chances. Man, I would have snatched your hand off to have Russell Wilson have 32 touchdowns against 8 interceptions. You bet your bum on that one.
Yeah. I'm with you. I love the touchdown interception ratio, but I wish we had just a total turnover stat because strip sacks are a part of it too. And that's been, I think he has 6 or 8 fumbles so far this season. He's not number 1 in the NFL, but he's in the top 6, I believe. So that's something I'll probably give him a B- here. I want to see a little bit more. I think
he has 5 fumbles and 4 interceptions for 9 turnovers.
9 turnovers. So yeah, just got to protect the
ball.
It's
a solid week in Atlanta.
The Desmond Ridder special, huh? Yeah, so I'll give him a B-. Running backs, I'm going to give the running backs a B+. Scott, honestly, actually, I'm going to give him an A-. I keep moving the grade up 1, but just because it is so thorough with their 3 running backs, Jill McLaughlin coming out of nowhere, providing explosives. He's been the second most efficient running back in all of football so far this season, only behind Devon Achane, who the only reason he's number 1 is because he absolutely destroyed the Broncos in week 3, but McLaughlin's been great. Javonte Williams is trending in the right direction. He wasn't great. I'm still waiting for an explosive run from him where he makes that last guy miss and then it's 20 yards. Broncos really could use that from explosive offense perspective. Haven't been there yet. And Samaje Perine's done so good in that shotgun pass offense running back. Some of the blitz pickups have been incredible. The designing the free rusher. Well, Samaje Perine has neutralized some of those guys in this, and he's been pretty good in the passing game too. He's not overly explosive, but he can make a guy miss and then pick up instead of 2 yards, 10 yards, and that really matters for this type of offense.
I'm a B on these guys so far. Okay. I thought they've done their jobs, but I feel like the first real glimpse of plus running back play we've seen of Javonte Williams has been in the last couple weeks, where we talk about war of the wins against replacement, where I've seen him do some things like, okay, there's Javonte, now there's Javonte. There's a guy who's a difference maker, who's getting through to the second level, breaking tackles and punishing guys. Samaje's I don't mean to say this negatively and saying, because not everybody has average running backs, especially a third average running back. But right now, for me, he's average.
Mhm.
And if I can get average NFL running back play from my third guy, that's solid. It's really solid. And then the wild card is McLaughin, who hasn't gotten enough touches for me to go, this guy's an A+. He's playing that way, but he hasn't. I like what he can do. I don't think he's done enough of it for me to say, oh, the running backs are an A. I just don't think the production has been there on the whole through 8 games. But I think they're a B and climbing.
The weird thing with McLaughin, and we'll have to, this might be an off-season move because it's going to take a lot of time. Maybe when I'm, staying up with the baby, I'll have the all-22 on or something whenever they come. But I wonder if McLaughlin's not getting more reps because he's kind of a tell out there on the field. Because of his size, it's kind of the Philip Lindsay thing where it's like, because of his size, you are not leaving him in pass protection. Now, I know it is typically, well, why don't you send him out as a receiver? Well, if you do that every single time with a guy, they're going to send certain types of pressure looks where they're going to be able to get a good chance at a free rusher out there. So you need is he going to go out for a pass or is he going to be a blocker? I think that does matter for what your offensive line does, your pressure, your protection packages, et cetera, et cetera. It feels like when McLaughlin's on the field, it's almost always going to him on a run or super high rate compared to things. So it's a tell. I do wonder if that's a reason that he's not getting more looks, but I trust Sean Payton to maximize his touches, and he's been good there. I would like more, but I am curious if it's something that they're holding back just because they don't trust him in pass protection because he is so diminutive. I did want to say hello to a few more people in here. Ryan Thompson, good morning, Broncos country. Pearl Heater says, hi, good to see you, Pearl. Chase Wellner's in the house. Always good to see Chase, says BFB. Chase, hopefully we can get you at the next Broncos meet and greet as well. Chase has been with us for ever. Always good to see Chase in here. Keith Brugman says the pressure rate attributed to the quarterback means our offensive line is doing better than we give credit. I'd expect a lot more holding calls with the number like Russ has. Yeah, they've actually been pretty good at not getting called for holds so far this season. I would have to go back and look at the data. It does not feel like it's been that many. It's been more like pre-snap penalties from the offensive line, but would be interesting to fun to follow. So keeping it forward here. Oh, also Scott, in my running back grades, I'm including Michael Burton in here, and he's been a pretty good fullback as well. So I'm going to give them an A-. I said I would give no A's. That's going to be true, but an A- overall for the group. Every single one of them has been at or above expectation for me, and I think they're playing pretty darn good football right now. We got Cameron Wadman coming in here saying, you guys are the bomb, favorite hosts. You must have meant this for a different show, Cam. Appreciate you. He says, I think you keep Kareem on the bench, try to get Sanders in there. Well, you're probably not moving to more 3-stack, inside linebacker looks, whatever you want to call it there for the Broncos. Drew Sanders has looked like he's a little bit over his head in terms of the processing right now. So we'll see how that plays out for him. I know a lot of people are excited about moving on from Kareem Jackson and potentially PJ Locke. Scott, I went and watched this game back just to see what number 6 is doing out there. He might have been the worst defender on the field in this Broncos game. I think PFF graded him as such as well, but went back. I mean, there's just plays that he got lucky that they missed. It was not a great game for PJ Locke, so I'm not sure if I am quite ready to bench Kareem. Kareem might do that to himself with his play, but yeah, PJ Locke I don't think he's totally ready for the big time.
Again, but you never mess with a winning streak either,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think he gets his job back when he comes back in.
Mm-hmm.
But PJ Locke came in with a 32, and he was just ahead of Jonathan Harris on 23 snaps and Mike Purcell on 9 snaps in that game. Again, you need to spend some resources on a safety in the offseason, whether it's a draft pick, day 2 draft pick, or spend some money. You can't just keep recycling Kareem Jackson out there. It's adequate for now, but his time is up. If it's not up, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be soon.
TikTok.
But you keep getting him for cheap, and you're getting okay safety play.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, PJ Locke was supposed to be what, 4th, maybe even 5th, depending on your draft picks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably 4th coming this season, but going to be interesting to follow, see what happens there with that safety spot. We'll get in the grades. Lawrence Rivera saying, what are guys? Sorry, I'm late. Rough day already. Well, hopefully Lawrence gets a little bit better in here and you're enjoying yourself, and have a good rest of your day. It's pouring here in Seattle. I'm actually pretty happy the internet is holding up. November is probably the most volatile weather month out here in Seattle. So we are in it. I'm not looking forward to the dog walk later, but hopefully your day gets better there, Lawrence. And hopefully it's better in here. Not that it's been bad in here, but just, hanging out in here, it's been better for you. We got wide receivers next, Scott. We did running backs. Now we're at wide receivers. I think I'll give the wide receivers a C+ as well. I think you got 2 solid wide receiver 2s in here. You got some optimism with Marvin Mims. The fact that you're getting anything from a Brandon Johnson is fun as a UDFA. Is probably more of a wide receiver 4. But I don't see a lot of big time upside from this group going forward. And I think they've only been a C+ level unit so far.
Yeah, I'm going to see, just because of, like you said, the production that you're talking about. I've seen flashes. Again, I want to see them get the ball more. I give them a C. It's not necessarily all on them, but I'm not going to excuse them either. It's not like they're out there dropping a ton of passes or anything, but you start looking at at overall, and Cortland Sutton's leading the team with 380. Jerry Jeudy's at 330. Marvin Mims is still knocking close to those guys at 250. That's just not, and the yards per reception is low. Where I think you might get the bump on this would be the Russell Wilson stat of the wide receivers, was this Cortland Sutton with 6 touchdowns. That's a lot. But, and I don't know if they're trusting the new pieces on the offensive line more, that are getting more comfortable in the offense, but I want to see more production from the receivers. I said that earlier today. I'm not surprised the running backs are touching the ball a ton in the passing game. I don't want the ball going to the tight ends. I don't want it going to Manhertz and Troutman when I've got Mims, Jeudy, and Sutton out there.
Yeah, it's the tight ends. They're a big function of the offense, from trying to get the defense in certain types of looks from coverages and personnel. We're seeing a lot of Troutman out there. We're seeing a lot of 6 offensive line as well. But you're not getting very much from them from making a difference as a playmaker in the offense. It's kind of, I'm treating Dulcich with the Baron Browning treatment here. Love the flashes. I'll believe it when I see it, when you can stay on the field for multiple games. One thing I will say, Scott, is that with the style of offense that we're seeing so far, having a plethora of weapons maybe isn't always going to be the most beneficial or have the biggest impact on the game, because you're not asking Russell Wilson to make, very complex, multiple full field reads right now. So he's not getting to his 3rd read on many plays. So the tight end, they could be part of the 1st and 2nd read more often if you had guys that were worth that. But it's not like when you had Peyton Manning and you had 4 different guys and he could pick his matchup and get to his 3rd read and that kind of thing, where, just pick your poison based on what the defense is doing. It's not that type of offense. So having
Peyton Manning does this left to right, and he just made 6 reads.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, a lot of his reads were pre-snap, right? He knows what you're doing. Yeah, but yes, not really seeing that. So the bevy of weapons probably don't matter as much. I'd rather have a guy that's I'd rather have Calvin Johnson out there than a bunch of guys where it's
okay. I feel like I said, I only mentioned 3. I mentioned the 3 guys that you could have as downfield weapons, and Sutton, Jeudy, and Mims. You've got enough that the ball doesn't need to be going towards your tight ends as much.
Yep. So it's definitely a spot the Broncos will probably be looking to target this offseason. There's a lot of snaps for the tight ends in this offense, and they just don't really have anybody who's a difference maker all
and to be fair, the targets have gone to the leading targeted receiver is Cortland Sutton with 46. Jerry Jeudy is next with 40. Then Samaje Perine 26. Then Javonte Williams 22. Then Troutman. Then Mims with 14. Then McLaughlin is 14. Then Brandon Johnson with 13. So Manhertz only has 3 targets. He's not getting targeted a lot out there, that's for sure. But again, some of it is, let's not treat our wide receivers like tight ends and see if we can get them the ball past 8 yards past the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Speaking of tight ends, I'm going to give them probably give them
said that as soon as I flashed Gary Palmer.
Yeah, sorry, just woke up. We'll catch up later. Go
Speaking
Broncos.
Of tight ends. Let's say hello to Gary. Gary, how you doing?
Good to see you, Gary. G Money. The tight end grade, I'm going to give them a. Scott, you and I kind of differ on this, because I really, really, really do value blocking from the tight end position. And just because the blocking has been so positive from them, it keeps them from the D range.
We're going to differ on a lot of things on this one.
Okay. I'm going to give them a C- just because of how good they have been
We're gonna talk completely different about them and end up within one spot of the same grade.
Yeah. I'm going to give them a C minus. Like I talked about earlier, the rushing efficiency when you have multiple tight ends on the field is drastically different than out of 11. They're top, I think, 4th overall in EPA per play out of 12 personnel rushing the football, which is great, obviously. And that's the credit to, Manhurts and a lot of the scheme and the tight formation stuff that they've done with creating lanes and doing power stuff. So I'm going to give them a C minus. If it was just based on the pass catching ability, it would literally be an F for me, Scott, because you're getting that little from them right now. But the blocking has been that good, so I'm going to give them a C minus.
So you're C minus, and I'm coming up with a D for basically different grades somehow. So we just describe them different. For me, for guys who offer zero threat in the passing game, you're basically calling them blocking specialists, and they're just guys out there. It's just compared to Dulcich and Okawebanam, our expectations are so low that we think, hey, he can block. That must be great. They're okay. There's nothing special about either one of them as blockers, except that they're not crap, which is what you got to become accustomed with Okawebanam and Dulcich, who you expect absolutely zero from.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything special about them as blockers at all, and they offer zero downfield threat in the passing game. So that's a D for me.
Yeah, I had to give a little bit of a bump up for the run blocking.
They're doing a job. They're average run blockers.
Ooh, I would disagree on that one. I would disagree on the average run blocking. And I would, if you want to argue that, the pass impact, it should be like 75% of the grade to 25. If we're looking at the rubric, that should have a much heavier weight, then I'd agree with you there. But going back and watching Manhurts,
there was something special. I wouldn't need an extra tackle in there so much. They're okay. They're just guys.
Yeah. We'll disagree on that one. We'll come back to it.
How the team plays when they're out there, that as part of the unit, we can get back into Troy's question at the beginning. How do you grade the offense as a unit? I think they're fitting into a part of it, but they are very, very replaceable. In fact, I think you have to replace them to take the next step as an offense.
It'll probably be pretty hard this offseason. Luckily, it does seem like there's more tight ends that are worth stuff coming into the league here recently, just because we've talked about it a little bit, Scott. Basketball, I think, is the big change here. The guys who used to be those power forwards that are the 6'5", 6'6", post players. Well, now those are, stretch players, or it's a different type of player in basketball. And those guys are instead getting funneled to football a little bit more. That tight end spot is becoming a little bit more athletic in the NFL. So will be fun to follow. Unfortunately, this is going to be a pretty, pardon my language, but pretty piss poor tight end class outside of Brock Bowers as it appears right now. So draft might not be the option there. I don't know. It'll be fun to follow. I agree with you, Scott. They definitely need tight end. Offensive line now. Scott, I'm going to give the offensive line a solid B on the season so far. I think that we talked about it a lot to start. I think a lot of the pressures and whatnot come from Russell Wilson not delivering a ball to guys who are NFL open and looking to duck his head and escape versus, getting a read. And I'd rather him duck his head and escape than throw up, an arm punt, so to speak. But I'm going to give the
5 individual grades and then give me that B again.
Okay, I'm going to give Garrett Bowles so far this season a B+. I'm going to give Powers a B. I'm going to give Lloyd Cushenberry a B+. I'm going to give Miners an A-, and I'm going to give Mike McGlinchey a D.
Man, I need to be in your class right now. I think Garrett Bowles has been a B, which is still an improvement. I think Powers on the whole has been a C because he struggled so early. He's gotten better again. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the full 8 weeks here, and he struggled early. He's been playing okay since, so I'll go B, C. Lloyd Cushenberry for me has been average, which is still a huge improvement from an H that we would have given him in years past, which is still a C. I think Miners has been solid, B+, and then we're down to D again at best on McGlinchey on the right side. So for me, at best, if I hear all of those numbers together, I can't do anything better than a C for the unit.
All right. I disagree a little bit on the assessment of, I think Cushenberry's been, I've gone back and again watched these games more recently, watching it with an offensive line eye. It's really great when you're watching it after the fact because you can pause, especially run plays, because so much has to work for it to happen, you can't get it on just one watch. You have to watch the play like
No,
3 times.
you end up watching it 6 times.
Yes.
Because you
It's
watch
just
every single offensive lineman, and then when they stunt and twist, you're like, all right, now who was that? This guy just went behind this guy and I lost him.
yeah. I've been impressed with Cushenberry this season. He's been much better. Sometimes offensive line takes years to click. It's unfortunate last year the Broncos cost control, but I think I got to give him a B, especially with the run blocking.
So you'd absolutely want him back on a similar contract in the $3 million range.
Yes, that would be hell yes. Sign me up. I'm thinking he's probably going to be looking for 6 to 7. Doesn't mean he's going to get it. But there's always look for offensive line, especially a team that probably has a young quarterback. Oh, we want to bring somebody in a second contract in here. We're not paying the quarterback anything. We will pay for some stability out that line. So it looks like Cush has been, to me, really improving here. Also, I don't know what it is, Scott. The last few weeks, he's looked more mobile too. I don't know if it's they're trusting him in those kind of things, but I'm actually seeing him in space where before it's like he's missing guys, and now is
For the first time we've seen him get out wide. We've seen him get to the second level in the middle between the hash marks. We've seen him do that a lot. That's the state. If you can't do that, you can't play. But we've seen him get out wide on screenplays in the last week or so, and that hasn't happened. So
no
footwork, I'm not sure exactly what it is either, but he is for the first time getting out wide on the screenplays too, which he hasn't been able to get to, or his angles have been wrong or whatnot. But he is being trusted more. But for me, on the whole, once again, we're talking a C.
Yeah, and might be worth digging into closer to the end of the season. A lot of the advanced metrics for the offensive line do have them in the 8 to 16 range so far this season in a lot of the pass protection win rate, the displacement rate, and the run blocking. It's been, and they've definitely been trending in the right direction too, which is good to see.
To be fair, I would consider 16th of 32 a C. That's average for me.
Yeah,
and I would go down to like, if I'd go to like maybe 20, 16 to 20 would be in the C range to me. Below 20 to 25 would be D. 26 and below would be an F. So if I'm saying C, I legit mean average.
Yes.
But that, again, he was in the F range. So part of the we're talking, that is a huge step in the right direction for him. And the offensive line's been better because of it, for sure.
Yeah. One caveat here, Scott, in the offensive line before we get to the defense, and we'll go quicker on the defense. The Broncos are one of the few teams in the NFL where they've suffered 0 significant injuries on the offensive line. I don't think.
Isn't that great?
I don't think an offensive lineman's missed a snap because of injury this season.
I
that
think
is
there was one
rare.
Early there that may have been. I could check the snap counts and stuff, but nothing, like a shoulder stinger or something. Nothing remarkable, like a series.
Yes. Every single offensive lineman that was supposed to be your preseason starter is still starting in the same spot, and there have not been injuries. That is rare. So one of the reasons the Broncos offensive line, I think, is playing better is because the depth of offensive line knock on wood, as Lance says, one of the reasons they've looked good is because they're one of the few teams who have not had to test the depth so much, where most teams now, there are teams that are on their third string right tackle, or we had the Jets this last week playing, I think, their 4th center of the year, and Dexter Lawrence, ate him alive on the field. It was unbelievable. But the Broncos, we can't talk about the offensive line playing well this season without adding the context of how rare it is that your preseason starters are still your starters at this point, and you have not suffered injuries. Knock on all wood, God bless, we're not, no injuries here. Interior defensive line, Scott, I'm going to give them a C- on the season. Zach Allen has been playing better. I've enjoyed some of the Mike Purcell snaps going forward. DJ Jones has still been solid, but the depth, Hennessy probably should be a borderline rosterable player. We also have Jonathan Harris, who hasn't been great. Zach Allen early was not playing great. They're a C- unit for me. They really need to add another solid player long-term in this unit for them to be a potential difference-making unit.
Again, if you're taking the last 2 games out of it and you're looking at 8 weeks because we're rosier from the last 2 weeks, in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But on the whole, the best you could give the defensive line is a D for the whole, because you're putting them all in there. Again, you start looking at all these things, you're going to see 32 across the board for this defense because it started so poorly. Now, Zach Allen played great the last couple of weeks. He is absolutely becoming the guy that you paid for. DJ Jones is steady. He's working, but Zach Allen was bad to start. Jonathan Harris is a replaceable player. He's okay. Mike Purcell, 9 snaps. He's not doing a whole lot. So for the first 8 games, it's a D unit. Now for the last 2.5, 3 games, I'd say B.
Yeah.
So again, we have to talk about the season as a whole,
Yeah.
and we'll be fair on mentioning the improvement. But again, this is a 3-5 team with one of the worst offenses that was on an historical level for 5 weeks of the season. We
Yeah.
can't just gloss over all that stuff. We have to talk about that if I'm giving grades. What you did the first 5 weeks matters.
Yeah.
Now, where is it heading? That's a different conversation.
Yeah.
And we'll have a different conversation in week 18.
Yeah, I think
hopefully.
I'll move my grade from a C- to a D+ on that one for the defensive line, because you're right. They were dreadful early on. They have been playing better. It's just the depth really lacks, man. I know we talked about at the end of the last show. I really wish they could have maybe flipped a wide receiver plus a pick and brought in a Christian Barmore or Derek Brown or something, just to like get a difference maker, displacement kind of player on that line. Because you got a plug. You got kind of a more finesse gap guy with Zach Allen who can do some stuff, but you don't really have that, just Hulk power, guy that's getting in the backfield, just running through defense or offensive line. It's just not happening. I don't think they have that guy. Lance Johnson, at the end of the day, Scott, it sounds like the team is learning the system very well. Whole team deserves an A for coachability. I don't know about coachability, but it seems like they're turning a page right now. It's kind of a hard to factor because we don't see that's an intangible, right? So it's hard to grade.
Lance, I think health and new players becoming more comfortable in the system, the new system being more comfortable with the players you have is absolutely a factor in this, Lance. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Again, this team could have quit. They could have packed it in and been done with it and said, okay, Vance Joseph's gone. I'm looking out for me. I'm going to make sure I'm not injured. You know what? My hamstring's a little hurt. Don't think I'm going to play today. That happens. That happens for teams that tank. They tank. And part of it is the way the players react. And we saw it in Chicago. When things were, Chicago was the comeback, right? That was, I'm getting confused on. There was one with a nice big lead. That was the Commanders, nice big lead. And then it went away. In Chicago, you saw that this team had heart. Kansas City, they came out and fought. Green Bay Packers, they came back when they could have packed it in. And I agree. And this team is absolutely improving. But if I'm going to give midterm grades, what you do in the first 4 or 5 weeks counts. And that's why my grades are probably a little bit lower. Let's talk again in week 16. And 3/4 of the year will outweigh the first quarter of the year instead of it counting as half your grade right now.
Yeah, it's a very good
First
and fair
half
call.
of the grade was a freaking F, a bad F, Nick. You're starting in the 30s.
Yeah, they stunk out loud early. Edge rusher, I'll probably give them I will give them a C- on this one, Scott, just because I think Benito and Cooper kind of salvaged that early, even though you're getting nothing from Gregory and Clark. And you had the Browning, which 2 out of, what are we at, 8 games? That's a good enough sample size. I think they've been, B the last few weeks. They're bordering very close to a D+, but I'm going to give them a little bit of a trending in the right direction. I think you got the right guys out there. C- for the unit. Also did want to give a shout out for the usage and role of Ronnie Perkins. He's been a little bit more of a chess piece edge for them, where he's dropping in coverage as much, if not more, than rushing the passer. But that's a role in this 3-4 defense. So I think they're a C- right now. They don't have a true difference maker unless Browning can be, truly healthy. He's pretty amazing when he's been out there. But I'm going to give him a C- on the season.
I'm at C on this, because again, Browning, I think, has a chance to elevate this. But Jonathan Cooper is a hard worker, and I love having him as part of the rotation. If he's a starter, you're probably not going to be a really great pass rushing team. Benito is a specialist type player who can come in, but as a starter, he's a liability against the run. And, he hasn't, because it's not like he's out there making 3 sacks a game as a pass rush specialist. They're okay. Those are replaceable guys if the right guy were to present themselves, but they're serviceable that you can do a job. They can do a job for you, but they're average for me right now. Baron Browning has a chance to be above average. He's out there. Let's see how he goes.
Yep. Absolutely. Linebacker now, not the outside guy, the inside, whatever you want to call them nowadays. I'm going to give them a B on the season. They're steady Eddie. I think they've played just consistently above average. Singleton's taken a step back this season. Drew Sanders, when he's been out there, has looked, not ready at all. But I think they've been okay this season. They're far from the issue. Sorry, Ethan. I know that he's probably, screaming at this, but I mean, they've kept things in front of them. what they just did last week with Travis Kelce, Josie Jewell making up big turnovers here and there. You saw what the defense was without Josie out there too. It was pretty damn ugly. So I'm going to give them a B. I think they're fine. And that's all what I want from the unit right now.
I'm okay with a B minus for the linebackers. When Jewell and Singleton are out there together, the run defense is eons different. And they have to be, because we just talked about the front three being an F to start the season. So I'd go with a B minus on linebackers. Do I want to get upgrades moving forward? Sure, but you can absolutely win games with those guys.
Yeah, they've been fine. I really hope that we see better play from Drew Sanders going forward, considering he was the 75th overall pick or something like that, and some people had him as linebacker 1 in this class. He's looked pretty damn rough early on. It's one reason I think athleticism really does matter for the linebacker position, more so as a pass rusher than coverage or, even the sideline to sideline stuff, which Drew Sanders can bring. But the processing, the head up, the knowing your fits, the ability to disengage from blockers as they're coming at you at the second level. I mean, it's just stuff that he's pretty far behind right now. And it was his first year playing that off ball kind of role, the second level defense at Arkansas, even though they still used him a lot as a designated pass rusher lineup over a guy in the line. So it's taken time for him. Not totally out on Drew Sanders, but I'm very happy that he is not thrust in there right now because he just does not appear mentally ready for NFL linebacking right now.
Yeah, I agree. Jewell and Singleton are needed on this team if you're going to win games.
Yep. Yeah. We'll go to cornerbacks now. The cornerback play is so tough because I don't know if there's been a position that has been as we talked about the defensive line turnaround. Well, God, cornerback with what we saw from Mathis and Bassie early on to now that what we're seeing from McLaughin and even Fabian Moreau, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm waiting for that chariot to turn into a pumpkin here, Scott. Sorry. But McLaughin looks like he's one who's going to stick around what his role is, but he's going to be a starter for the rest of his rookie contract, I think. And obviously we know what Patrick Surtain is. So I'm going to have to give them a D+ because they were so terrible early, but they flunked the first 5 quizzes and now they've gotten a BBA, so it's like, okay, you might not get held back. So we're going somewhere.
No, I agree with you. And that it goes back to kind of the idea of what we've been talking about this whole game is, I mean, this whole show, you're not even an F, you're an income, you're zeros across the board. Surtain was playing okay, but I can go around Surtain. Mathis was so bad. And you mentioned Bassie. You're missing K1 out there that it's like, dude, we're 4 weeks into the season. You've got a 30. You're going to have to get hundreds to get up into passing. So again, I would say D overall, but I look at the last couple of weeks and I'm in the B's knocking on doors of A's. So trending in the right direction for sure. But the overall grade has been poor because it was so bad to start the season.
Yeah. I do think they have something there in McLaughin. So I think that is a really fun thing to talk about going forward. You have one of those spots filled on a undrafted free agent contract. I mean, that's awesome along with Surtain. So you do have another cornerback spot to fill, but we'll see. So I'm going to have to give them a, like I said, what would you say? D+ for dog. But I mean, they slept through the pop quizzes early on. They didn't even make it. They didn't show up to the games practically. And now they're playing so much better. So hopefully we'll see that continue. We got Patrick coming in here before we get to our last couple grades here saying, aloha, my coffee brothers. Patrick, I just got the package yesterday. God bless you, man. That's going to get me through probably the first couple months of the little guy coming here. So appreciate that. Next week, I'll be able to catch the whole show live. Daylight savings ends. Buck them all. God bless you, Patrick. Thank you so much. Hope you're doing well. We really, really, really do appreciate that. One of our biggest benefactors for the show, literally, because we would not be able to get in this many words per minute without Patrick providing the caffeine that he does. Safeties, Scott, I'm going to give them a, you'll probably disagree with me on this one a little bit, but I'm going to give them a, oh God, just the Delaire and Turner Yell run that they had was so freaking terrible. The Kareem Jackson stuff, I don't know if you're going to disagree with me on this one. You missed games with Justin Simmons too. I'm gonna have to give him a D+ on the season.
Oh, the D. Yeah, I mean they were running around. They were unorganized, uninspired, not playing very well. And if you go and look at the PFF grades on these guys, you'll be like,
Yikes.
wow, the outside thoughts on these guys is they're freaking awful. Justin Simmons came back from whatever was ailing him and has been playing at a different level now. And part of that is probably not having to make up for so much stuff around there. Again, the whole unit is playing better. The pass rush gets better. Then the defensive backs play better. The corners play better. The safeties play better. It's a lot of synergy there. It's all connected. But overall, on the season, the pass yards given up, I mean, how do you give anything but a D at best for the way the safeties have played? Now, the last couple of weeks, absolute improvement. Absolute improvement. So we're halfway through. We're halfway through the semester, and the first quarter of this semester makes up half your grade. And it was triple F. It was awful. Awful. Yeah. And we're digging out of that hole when we're giving our midterms right now.
Yep. So we'll see how the rest of it plays out this season. Overall grade for the I think we have to do specialist too. I'm going to give the specialist a B+, Scott, and this includes Mims as a returner. You had Will Lutz the first game, but since then he's been money, and Dixon has been good. I think also the coverage units have been solid as well. So I'm just going to give overall special team specialist grade a B+. I think DVOA has them the fourth best special teams in football right now,
that'd be an A for me.
Yeah, I mean, which is shocking too, because DVOA puts a negative variable grade for special teams on all the games that are played in Denver because of the altitude factor, which is a fun little caveat that they have. But yeah, I think they've been B+ overall. I want to see a little bit more. It's for special teams to get an A. My standards are unbelievably high because I watch Iowa football, and the special teams takes the ball away like an incredible rate too. It's like block field goals, block punts, returns for touchdowns constantly from Iowa. So that's kind of the A range for me. We haven't had any, block returns for a touchdown or anything, but they've been great. So really excited to see them.
In NFL though. That stuff doesn't happen very often. I mean, the returns for touchdowns are rare. Yeah. Rare. If you're making your field goals and not giving up big returns, it's an A for me. Yeah. And there might be more A's across the board for special teams. So we're not grading on the bell curve here. Yeah. But they've been good. They've had they're returning the ball well when they get the chance. They're limiting the return yardage, and Will Lutz has been clutch. Again, he's started off bad, but his was only kind of 1 week, and he's been money ever since, including some game winners out there.
And the special teams output this season is one of the things that I think we haven't, NFL, Broncos media in general, haven't discussed enough as far as the direction, culture, and system that Sean Payton is instilling, because that's typically one of the units that if you have undisciplined, bad coaching, guys not lined up together, then you're going to have mistakes left and right. We haven't really seen that from Denver. Obviously, the block field goal last week, but sometimes guys make plays. Sometimes they're offsides and they make plays. Yeah, overall, pretty fun unit. So Scott, we weren't that far apart. I think the only unit that we disagreed with the most strongly was the offensive line. I think that we differ greatly on the offensive line. That might be worth digging into a little bit more at some point, just because we need a little bit more time to discuss and maybe gather some of the data that we have so far this season.
Yeah, Michael Rankia is going to close us out today. He says, great show today, Nick and Scott on Broncos for Breakfast. Thank you. We went a little long today. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. If you did, give us a like, give us a subscribe. It helps us out. Yeah. So appreciate everybody being here today. Want to say thank you to our Super Chat superstars coming in. Jesse got us kicked off. Michael opened and closed on Facebook. Drake Wally, thank you, sir. Troy, Cameron, Lawrence, Gary Palmer, thank you so much. It is Thursday, so it's almost time for a football weekend.
Yeah, we are almost there. Man, Scott, what a week of football too. This is probably I am so excited for Sunday because I don't have to worry about the Broncos at all. But I just want to get your quick. I know we're late. I just want to get your quick prediction on the title fights today or this Sunday, because my God, every single time slot has an unbelievable game. So you kick off here 6:30 a.m. for me over in Frankfurt, Germany. Miami versus Kansas City.
Oh, Dolphins are playing pretty good ball right now, but if this was because Kansas City's listed as the home team, but they're not. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go with the Dolphins on this one. I think they're playing better, and 6-3 wouldn't kill the Chiefs. I would go with the Dolphins on this. Kansas City's favored by 1.5.
It's going to be a hell of a game, and whoever wins that one, I believe, gets first place in the AFC. There are 4 6-2 teams right now, but I think by tiebreakers it would be the winner of this game. The next one, big game, would be Seattle at Baltimore, another 5-2 team versus 6-2 team. I'm going to go with Baltimore in this one. They're playing good football. They might be my pick to win the AFC right now. I think
I
Lamar
like
is playing
Baltimore
amazing.
too. The defense, the playmaker at quarterback, and I don't know how. Seattle's wins have come against their best one was Detroit. They've got Carolina, Giants, Arizona, and then they beat Cleveland.
Yeah.
So and that was kind of a shock that they won that game against Detroit. If they were to do it in the playoffs now, then I'd be like, oh, Seattle's for real, because I'm a big fan of what Detroit's doing right now.
Yeah.
But I would go with Baltimore at home on this one.
Should be a hell of a game. One of the best rivalries in football, Dallas at Philly.
I like the Eagles at home, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I saw in the upset special for for ESPN, they picked Cowboys, but that could be as much for clicks as anything, for God's sakes. Not that Philly isn't a huge fan base, but Philly, for me, I said it last week, I think they're the most complete team across the board. They proved it. If it was last week or the week before against the Dolphins, I think they handled them pretty well.
I've really enjoyed the evolution of the Cowboys offense here recently. They've moved CeeDee Lamb from the really heavy slot usage to playing much more boundary, and he's getting more explosives and being targeted more. CeeDee Lamb is really emerging right now. So fun to watch that. I think Dak Prescott's, because he's the Cowboys quarterback, the conversation is never great around him, but like, he's an unbelievable quarterback. He's like squarely in my top 6, Scott, which I don't think a lot of people have him there, but I think he's the most cerebral quarterback in the NFL. Right now. And the final game that I just can't wait to watch, one of my favorite matchups here recently over the last few years, we talked about earlier, Bills at Cincinnati.
Man, could the Bills really drop within a game of 500 after 9 weeks? They're 5-3. Bengals have gotten off to a bad start, but they've started to turn it around a little bit. Some of that might be health. They've won 3 straight. Those 3 straight were Arizona, Seattle at home, and then the 3rd straight loss from the San Francisco 49ers. They lost to Tennessee, Baltimore, and Cleveland. I mean, I just feel like when the Bills put it together, they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the NFL. Yeah. I think they win this one. This one is at Cincinnati, which is a factor, but I like Buffalo better. So we'll see if they can win. But Cincinnati is back from the dead for sure after their rough start.
They've been playing good football, that's for sure. Curious about the Bills. Over the last 4 weeks, their defense has gone in the pooper, Scott. They've been bad. They have the 29th ranked defense in football over the last 4 weeks in EPA per play. They are much worse against the pass. They're one of the worst against the pass. Recently, they're missing Milano. The safeties don't look very good. They need cornerback help. The defense has fallen apart. And Von Miller, I love Von Miller, but he has not looked like Von Miller this season. So AJ Epinesa has actually been their best pass rusher, which go Hawks. But that's a team that they look vulnerable right now, specifically on defense.
Yeah, I mean, you don't go 5-3 without being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then they're road dogs. So that would be actually an upset on that one. So we'll see. I knew someone to be here would be all Cincinnati. Good to see you fall in sloth. Hope things are well. Yeah. I think I don't remember who it was on Facebook made the comment. You probably want the Bills to win this one though.
Yeah.
You don't want them
be pissed
having to win at home and the home crowd against you and the desperation, all that type of stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah. We will see, guys, and appreciate it. We went long today, but it's a lot of fun to talk football with you guys. Sorry, Scott, for keeping you long, too. But, it's always fun to hang out with you guys. Make sure you're following Scott on Twitter. Scott is at Scott Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also follow us at BFB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, follow us at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe to Mile High Huddle over on YouTube, like the show, and share it on your social media platforms. We got a good super coming in here right as we end the show here. So let's get to that. And then, we'll get on out of here. It says, good morning, gents. The win aside, we still have a lot of holes, but we are getting healthy. It'll be interesting to see how they follow up our most recent win. Still huge questions on what's going on with Russ. Denver Broncos for life. Yeah, I'm still very much in the wait and see on Russ. A lot of the peripheral statistics look good. The passing statistics specifically, but he's not being asked to do a lot right now. And the I think he's missing some plays as well. It just looks like a really simplified offense. Like I've said this before, Scott, but it's like they're calling plays right now like he's a rookie contract quarterback. Like they have Desmond Ridder at quarterback.
What would the Atlanta Falcons record be if they had the efficiency of Russell Wilson at quarterback for this season?
6-1,
7-1,
7-1,
7-1,
maybe 2 because Russell Wilson.
The Detroit Lions, when they played the Lions let the Falcons hang around.
Mm-hmm.
And the only team that they weren't really in the game that dominated them pretty good was the Jaguars in London. Yeah. They'd be 7-1. So maybe you're hoping you can get some money back on that contract with a trade because someone looks down and says, you know what, I could use a 32 touchdown, 8 interception guy who's efficient in the red zone on my team because he could be the next step for us. Yeah. That would be a very, very nice option to have because Coach Chris, thank you for coming in. There's still huge questions about what's going to go on with Russell Wilson with that contract in the Denver Broncos. There are, and they're not going to be answered until the offseason. If he keeps playing like this, if he reverts back to last year's form, the questions have been answered. He's freaking done. You're going to eat the dead cap and be done with it. You hope that he plays at this current level and finishes with these type of numbers that you do have questions instead of them already being answered. Because the only way it's going to be answered for sure is negatively. And that's not what you want. You want to have positive options going in. Appreciate you, Coach Chris. Good to see you.
Yeah. Yeah, good to see you, Chris. Thank you so much for the super chat as we get on out of here. Already did the run through, so thanks, Scott. We'll see you again tomorrow. Hopefully everyone has a great rest of your day. Happy Thursday. Happy November. Happy birthday to my father and my grandpa as well. So November 2nd. Appreciate you guys. I'll give you a call later. And you guys have a great rest of your day. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.